Hello, and welcome to another installment of Practical Farms, where we take a look at different farms and make them more practical depending on where we are in each phase of the game, whether it's early game, mid game, or late game, so that they are more cost effective and suit our needs. Today, we're going to be taking a look at honey and honeycomb farms. So let's get to it. Now, when you're playing early game and you haven't made it to the nether yet, the only way to really farm either honey or honeycomb is from a bee nest that you have to find naturally occurring. You can get them by searching for them in flower forests or other areas that have flowers, or you can even just plant trees, oak or birch, near a flower, and occasionally they will spawn. I think it's one every 20 attempts. If you have a silk touch tool, I recommend grabbing one of these, usually at nighttime so the bees aren't aggravated, and then move them inside a structure because bees tend to get lost, at least they do for me. They also will be damaged by water or by fire, but early on you can just go ahead and place a campfire underneath, use it to grab your honeycomb without aggravating the bees, and then you can make your own beehive and place this inside of a structure. And it's really easy to do. You just build an encasement. I like to put glass just so I can see inside of it. You place a temporary block, place the beehive on top, remove the temporary block, place a campfire underneath it, and then I like to put trapdoors around the edges of the campfire. That way a bee won't accidentally fly into the campfire and damage themselves. Also, I like putting a trapdoor on top of the beehive because this is just a neat way to stop the smoke from coming out. If you like the smoke effect, then you can leave the trapdoor off, but if you don't like having the smoke, it's a good idea just to put it on there because it will stop all of the smoke effects from coming through the top of your beehive. Now, I like to use spruce for my trapdoors, but you can use any type of wood and style of trapdoor you like. It really doesn't make a difference. It all works the same. The next thing to do is to get your bees that are out in the wild to come into your bee house. Bring them in just by holding a flower in your hand. They'll follow you in. Sometimes they act a little funny. Their pathfinding can be a little bit tricky trying to come in a door. I like to put two doors sort of like an airlock so that you can close one and keep them from escaping. Once you take it out of your active hand, they will redirect to the flowers and to this beehive. It's as simple as that, and now you have them in a safe, protected place, and you can come and get your honey or honeycomb anytime you want. And really, until you've gone to the nether, this is the only way to farm both honey and honeycomb. But if you've made it to the nether, you can automate this process. Let's take a look at how that works. Now, to make an automatic honeycomb farm is very simple. You just need to have a comparator, which is why you need to make it to the nether before you can build this farm. But it works on the premise that as the bees enter and leave the bee nest or the beehive, it increases the honey level of that beehive, starting at 0, which is empty, to level 5, which is full and ready to harvest. Now, if we take a look at this, it's very simple, and I'll just show you one that's already built. I think it's pretty simple to follow along. You basically start with the collection system underneath. I like to use hopper minecarts on a rail, and you can just have it running down the length of this. They are one wide tileable, so you can place as many of these as you want along a line. I recommend doing them in groups of 8, just because the bees tend to get lost as they travel up and down your farm. You also then just put a couple of dirt blocks right there, but you can also come in, if you like, if you have access to flowering azalea leaves, you can replace this dirt block with a flowering azalea leaf block, and then you don't have to have your farm come out quite so far. You can have it just be 1 block wide. The bees will pollinate off of these flowering leaves just as well as they do off a flower. If you don't have access to them, that's not a big deal. All you have to do is just place a dirt block above the rail and out 1 block and put a flower here, and the bees will pollinate off of that just as easily. All you have to do then is run a line of solid blocks below the beehive, put a comparator 1 block away. This comparator will read the honey level of that beehive through this solid block. It's as if the block's not there at all. It just reads straight through it. Once it reaches a honey level of 5, meaning that the beehive is full of honey, it will send a signal strength of 5 out the back. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it will then activate this dispenser, which has a shear within it. Now you can have anywhere from 1 to 9 shears in this dispenser, and it'll work perfectly fine. The more you have, the longer it'll be before you have to replace them, and it will continue to shear honeycomb out of this bee hive. Now, to make it to where this dispenser will face down into the bee nest is probably the only complicated part of this whole thing. Let me give you a little demonstration on how you can do that, though. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is place a temporary block above where the bee nest is going to be, and then you can place the dispenser right above it, and you'll see the hole for the dispenser will be pointing where the bee nest will be. Then you can place your bee nest right there, and it'll be perfectly fine. And you can tile these, as I said, one wide all the way down. Just follow this pattern. I'll give you a second so you can look at it. It's a very simple system. Now, when it comes to farming honey bottles, it's a little harder. The reason it is, while you technically could use this same system that's here behind me to collect honey bottles, and it would work, the problem is the way in which dispensers work with bottles and collecting honey. When a dispenser activates a bottle, it not only collects the honey, it returns the bottle back into the dispenser, and therefore it's impossible for your railcar system to pick them up. It'll be collected inside the dispenser. There really is only two ways in which you can prevent this from happening. One is to have every single one of the slots of the dispenser, all 9 of them, filled with empty glass bottles. That means you need to have 64 bottles times 9 slots. That's 576 empty glass bottles in order to prevent honey from being into the dispenser. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of bottles. And that's per slice. So if you want to have a total of 8 slices of this farm, you're talking over 4,600 empty bottles. There's a better way. I've come up with a system where you really only need to have 1 empty glass bottle in your dispenser in order for the system to eject and put them into your railcar collection system. I'm pretty proud of it, so let me show you how it works. It begins the same way that our honeycomb farm works. You can use 2 dirt blocks, or you can come in and you can use the azalea leaves as well. You can do that. It'll shorten the distance of your area for the bees, but that's perfectly fine. You can either use the flowering azalea leaves, or you can use dirt blocks with a flower out 1 block away from your beehive, and that'll work fine. Then what you need to do is come in and put in a total of 4 temporary blocks. Then remove these. Come in and put a dropper facing down. Then below it, place a dispenser facing down. In order to place the dispenser, you will have to crouch place your dispenser below your dropper, but it's not hard to do if you do this at the very beginning. Then come in and place your beehive facing towards the flowers, and then behind it, place your solid blocks. Place 1 directly behind the beehive. Place your comparator facing into this solid block. Place 1 more block here. 2 pieces of redstone dust. Come up 1 block and put another piece of redstone dust. Use a glass block here for the same reason as on the other system, because it is a transparent block and allows the redstone dust to pass up through it. Place a redstone dust on top. Put a temporary block here and then 1 above it. Remove that temporary block. Then come and place a trap door underneath this solid block. Come in and put your observer looking at that trap door. Then come in, place a redstone dust above here. Put a repeater on top of the observer. Then place a solid block both here and here. And then put a redstone torch on each of these 2 blocks. Now, one important thing to do before you go any further is to make sure that your repeater is on a full 4-tick delay. By default, it's on a 1-tick delay, so just do it 1, 2, 3 more times, and it's on the full 4-tick delay. All you have to do then is fill as many bottles as you want into your dropper, and then place one of them into your dispenser. And the system is ready to go. And now that you've seen how to build the honey farm, let me show you how it works. It begins the same way that the other farm does for the honeycomb, where it has a comparator reading the honey level of the beehive through this solid block, anywhere from empty level 0 to full level 5. It sends out a redstone signal of that level along this redstone dust line, and when it reaches a honey level of 5, this redstone dust is activated, which powers this block. Now when that block is powered, it causes this trapdoor to open. You'll notice that when it does, this redstone torch right here flickers off and then back on. That's because this observer saw the trapdoor open. The redstone pulse from this observer lasts for 2 redstone ticks. When this redstone torch flickers, it causes the dispenser to collect the honey from the beehive and return back into the dispenser. Once that happens, the comparator reads a honey level of 0, so the redstone signal has a strength of 0, causing this redstone line to be deactivated. When it does, that causes the trapdoor to close. You'll notice that the redstone torch flickered once again on a 2-tick redstone pulse. When that happens, it ejects the full honey bottle from this dispenser. And since it's the only bottle that's in there, it will always be the one that is ejected. Now, if you remember, we put this repeater onto a 4-tick delay, and it was very important to do that because that accounts for the 2 times that this observer emits a 2-tick pulse. 2 pulses from the observer at 2 ticks each equals 4 ticks, which matches this repeater. That then means that this torch will flicker off and then back on, causing the dropper to drop a honey bottle into our dispenser. Now you'll notice that the dispenser, when it dispensed the honey bottle, there was no honey in there, so it just ejected an empty honey bottle. But the principle works the same way when you're dealing with full honey bottles. Let me reload it, get it set up, and what I'm going to do is go in and build in all 8 slices of this farm, bring in some bees, allow the beehives to fill with honey so you can see it in action. I'll be right back once that's ready. Okay, I'm back, and as you can see, I've put in 8 slices of this farm. I've also enclosed it with glass and walls. I put in little doors and everything so I can get in and access the farm easily. I've also put in a rail system up above with hoppers and a minecart with a chest so that we can reload bottles into this system very easily. And I expanded the collection system underneath this with a minecart with hopper and rails that feeds into a double chest. I can hear some of the trapdoors going, so let's take a look so you can see what happens whenever the system collects honey bottles. As we come around the back side of this, you can see that the redstone signals are at different levels depending on where the honey levels are for each beehive. And it should only be a few moments before we see one of the trapdoors flash. There you go. And as you can see, we have several honey bottles already collected. You'll notice that they only go up to 16 per stack, and I've already got 28 bottles of honey collected in this system. You can hear them keep going, and possibly you saw that one get ejected right there and collected. You really don't need an advanced unloading system for this farm. The rate at which they eject honey bottles, and honeycomb for the other one as well, is slow enough that a simple hopper feeding into a double chest or into whatever storage system you want to use is sufficient to keep up with the rates of this farm. And that's it. That's how you make a honey bottle farm. I really do think that this one is probably the best one out there. It uses a lot less bottles, makes it a lot more efficient, and while it is a little more resource intensive in building, in the long run, I think it works out even better. And you can expand it indefinitely. I recommend keeping it to 8 to 10 slices at a time though. It makes it easier to chunk a line, and it also helps the bees make it easier to pathfind back to their beehive. Like I said, that's all there is for this farm. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and that it helps you out and you can put this to use somewhere in your own world. If it has, I'd appreciate if you leave a comment down below letting me know how you used it. But on that note, I'd like to say thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next one. But until then, this is Texas PK. Be good to each other. Bye!